Hey everyone, welcome to the Executive Edge podcast. I'm Jemai Canley, founder of Potential Unleashed Consulting. I sit down with founders, executives, and high performers to unpack what really gives leaders their executive edge. In a world where everyone has access to the same tools and information, what actually separates the exceptional from the average? Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. I am here with Milton. Milton, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited. Folks, Milton and I have already had a whole podcast without pressing record. So I'm just going to tell you ahead of time, you are in for some good stuff today and all the things that Milton is going to share just about Milton's own experience, the things that he's helped other organizations do internally and externally. So we've got a lot of great content coming your way with today's episode. But before we jump into that, Milton, how did you get into leadership? Why did you choose leadership?
I got into leadership because I wanted to see more people like myself, and I wanted to help people. For me, mentorship and leadership has always gone hand in hand, no matter what levels you are. And I have found it difficult sometimes for myself. I'm fairly introverted. You wouldn't know it by being on a podcast or anything else. And so sometimes I find it difficult to connect, but I wanted to be able to provide that connection to people and that drive and that servant leadership. I'm very much in lean. I'm a lean consultant, and I push that needle and boundary. And so I believe in servant leadership. And part of servant leadership is making sure that you are accountable to those around you, that you're being that support, that sometimes you're being that sponsor, that you're removing those barriers, and that you're helping them make it to that next level. And that's kind of what it's about, regardless of whether or not it's a peer or it's somebody that's coming up, is opening that doorways. And for me, that's what leadership means, and that's what driving leadership is all about. And that's what made me jump into leadership.
Right on. Well, thank you for that. Just even in that moment, you gave me so many different questions that I want to jump into. But I'll just say this. It's good to see you. What I mean by that, it's good to see another introvert who does this type of work and also does podcasts and stuff. Because I tell people all the time, I'm a social introvert. They're like, what is that? I'm like, I like being around people for an amount of time. And then I need to go recharge and come back. Milton, I will even host the party at my house and then I will leave. I'm coming back though, because I live here, but I will find a random reason to go to the grocery store or to take the dog for a walk. And then I come back. And I love that, I appreciate you sharing that. And the reason why, and this is why I said it gave me so many different places that we could go. We won't go into all this today, but I just appreciate you sharing that because I want people to know that leaders come in all different forms. And I was so biased early on in my career that I thought that great leaders were extroverts, right? Because that's what I was taught growing up and everything else. That, that's what you need. You need that person who is extroverted and everything else. That's the leader. And it wasn't until gaining experience that I realized, oh no, leadership, just like everything else, comes in so many different flavors, so many different colors, so many different shapes and sizes, personality traits. And so anyway, I just appreciate you even jumping into that from the beginning and naming that.
Yeah. Sometimes you need those quiet leaders that'll break down those roadblocks and those stumbling blocks from you behind the scenes. Like that's just sometimes how people move. Don't get me wrong. Some people have to be very charismatic. Like you do have to, like you said, you're a social introvert. You got to turn it on enough to where you can engage. But then sometimes you got to just get the work done and you got to move it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Because not only for the people who are making the decisions on who should be in leadership, but I also hope that there's someone listening to this who maybe has been thinking, I can't do leadership because I'm an introvert. And just know that there's great leaders out there that are like you who are introverted but can get the job done and do the job well because of that diverse perspective as well. So really appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. Yes, you're right. They're definitely out there. I've seen them. I've met them. Like I've been fortunate enough to meet enough of them that they've had those conversations with me, and it's kind of that quiet leadership that they've shown me that it again helped push me to say, hey, you should be a leader. You should go into leadership because again, more people need to see that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to get into another thing that you mentioned in that brief intro, but even what you just said just kind of sparks an idea. So maybe this will come up in episode two. So, because one of the things that you just mentioned just kind of sparked another idea. I'm just going to make a note here, but the importance of mentorship. So, I would love to come back to that if we have some time
Yeah,
because, wow, I don't think we talk about that enough. But you mentioned also just your background and your expertise in uh, lean and servant leadership. And so, I would love to kind of hop into that conversation because I have experience with Lean and Six Sigma, and I know that you are, I mean, very well studied, equipped, and that skill set. Again, I've gone through it, had basic trainings in it and everything else, and it was a long, long time ago. But those things never, for me at least, they never have left me. And so it allows me to go into different organizations and see things through that lens and sometimes even help them. But I love what the work that you do and how you work kind of you can work on both sides as an internal consultant helping organizations with that, but also an external consultant helping organizations with that. But the thing I would love to start off with is this. I have worked with some organizations who have been hesitant about moving into lean because they've had some negative experiences or they've heard some things about it. So I'd love for you to jump into that because you, for me, hit the nail on the head when you said if people really understood it, they would understand the servant leadership. So let me turn it over to
yeah.
you. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
So my thoughts on that. Hey, I've seen, like you said, I've been internal, do a little external on it, and I know well enough to say, lean is a tool, and lean is one of those things. As its core tenet is respect for people. A lot of what people have issue and I hate to say it, like you said, like in many organizations, lean is a four-letter word. It,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But it's that way because of the way that it's been implemented. It is
Yeah.
a tool no different than anything else. Earlier we were just talking, and I said you can have a hammer and you can have a screw. Screw. The screw can be driven in with a hammer. You can hit it on there. You can do a lot of things with a hammer. You hit a nail. You can hit somebody over the head. But you got to get the right tool for the job. And part of understanding what lean, I don't look at it as just a tool, and it is a mindset. And so
Mm,
operationally, you
yeah.
have to realize what you're asking somebody to change. It's a behavioral change, it's a psychological change, it's the way that you look at things. So because of that, a lot of organizations push it in and push it down people's throats and say, we have to do this, we have to be very prescriptive, we have to do the MEG every single steps, or PDCA, we have to routinely go through it, and if you miss a step, you're not doing it right. And it's very hierarchical. They'll push it down from top down. They'll implement all the tools, and then they'll wonder why frontline staff or middle staff, like, it goes nowhere, it falls flat, and they're burnt out.
Yeah.
Well, part of it is you never really, they don't truly solve for the root, and they don't take into that account. They don't truly own and digest that respect for people. Lean Six Sigma is grassroots.
Mm,
Not say it should always it should always have a grassroots foundation. And like I said, it is a mindset. So you're asking people to change the way they think, see, feel, all of that from a behavioral perspective. So you have to bring them to that point. So you have to meet them where they are. And so anytime that I engage, I take a two-pronged approach. You got to do with leadership because leadership has to be engaged. They
yes.
can't be just supportive. What I see oftentimes is the rubber stamp, they're supportive, you can go. But much like in my perspective on leadership, you cannot lead from the back. You have to lead from the front. And again, you have to model behaviors. You have to model those behaviors. So they have to model it for all of the staff and people from the top. And then you take the grassroots people that do the job day in, day out. And you have to start with what is commonly known as the what's in it for me perspective.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and you have to, and what you have to do is go to Sue and be like, what drives you crazy? What do you take home at night? And then start with there. You develop their lean skills based off of that one thing, help them alleviate that one pain that they have control over, and then let them go talk about it. get them to the point where they can talk to other people about it. And you have to do both ends like that. Leaders have to do the same thing because don't get me wrong, they know a lot, but just like anything else, they struggle the same as anybody else. You have to understand what's in it for me, for them. And it's not, and a lot of times, I know we go in organizations and a lot of times it's like financial. It's not sometimes.
Yeah.
You gotta understand what's truly driving them and what their pain point is. Fix that one pain point problem, even if it somewhat seems irrelevant. But if you help them fix it, then the both ends will drive. One will drive down, one will drive up, and they'll meet in the middle. And
Yeah.
then you reduce that anxiety. You create psychological safety around lean, and you can course correct some of that, them considering lean as a four-letter word. One of the organizations I was a part of, it happened. Like I walked in and they point blank told me, I don't want to hear lean, I don't want to see lean, I don't want to touch lean. And that was my job as an internal consultant. So it's like, okay, cool. I was like, cool. Okay. I go, then what can I help you with? And you start slow and you start building relationships. Like it's very much respect for people. You have to build relationships at its core. So like you said, that social introvert, I gotta turn my I tell people I play an extrovert at work. And I have that for several years. Like I show up and I engage with people a lot because you gotta get at its core and you gotta make them comfortable. And
Yes.
you got to say, and you got to make sure even from like I said before, from a leadership perspective, you got to allow them to fail. Too many organizations have a fear of failure, but you got to create a culture where failure is not only looked at as something you should be doing, because if you're not failing, you're not trying.
Yeah.
But it's okay to fail because they know that you're going to fix it. They trust in you and your expertise because they know that you're ultimately going to come to a fix that will meet their bottom line, will save them money, will increase patient outcomes, will increase student success, will get that next drug on the market sooner. Like it will, but you got to create that environment and culture, and that's one of the reasons for me. When you look at lean, that's how you move that needle from, hey, lean is a four-letter word, and it shouldn't be, because it is about respect for people and understanding their expertise and where they're coming from.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. So much in that. So I'm going to plant a seed real fast that I would like for us to come back to that you just mentioned, which was talking about it being okay to fail. Because I'm a firm believer in that. I want to come back to that about it being okay to fail and how do you create that culture? Because so many organizations right now are struggling with innovation. And one of the things that we have to talk to them about is you've created a culture where people don't feel it's safe to fail, right? So I want to come back to that. But before we do, as you were speaking, it just hit me that there's people who are listening who I make the assumption sometimes that everyone knows what lean is. So if you had to explain lean in its kind of simplest breakdown, what would you say, just so people who are
This
listening who have never heard of it or again have heard of it in a different way, how would you break it down?
lean is You look at lean as the removal of waste to increase value add for a customer, and value add is simply what you're willing to pay for as a customer. Lean at its core, that's what lean is, and it's through process optimization and efficiency.
Yeah.
Six Sigma adds in a statistical component to that yeah, so statistical analysis, and that's the add. So when you add lean Six Sigma, it's really about the reduction of waste and focused in on customer provided value.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Milton. So, for those who are listening who maybe have never heard of that before, or again, you've experienced it in a different way, I want to just combine these two things together that I heard Milton say. So, if you think about Lean Six Sigma at its core, again, it's about the reduction of waste, right? It's about, the value add. And he talked about also it being about the respect of people. So, as you can understand, again, I'm just mentioning this before we go on to the next piece, that when you approach it in the way that Milton approaches it, you can see what a benefit it is for people. Because definitely, if we're only thinking about, and this is why sometimes I think it gets the bad rep, because if we're only thinking about efficiencies or the removal of waste, people get very nervous because they think, oh gosh, someone's going to think that what I do or, the way that we do things is wasteful and that could mean something negative or bad for us. But what I'm hearing you say, Milton, and what I've seen from some people who have done it really well when you start with that servant leadership mindset and the respect of people, the conversation starts with people. People often have the answers, right? Like if you ask them,
They always have the
right?
answer. It's not sometimes. They always have the
Yeah,
answer.
right.
Someone always has the answer because they're doing it. They know it.
Yes,
You're talking to
yes,
subject matter experts. It behooves you not to trust not to trust your people. You need to trust the people that do the work day in, day out because they know
yes.
where the gaps are.
Yes, that's what I was picking up as you were saying that. I'm like, yeah, when you start with the respect of people and you get to know people and you build relationship with people and all those things and you're listening to them because you trust them, they will help you implement lean and Six Sigma like better than an external person could ever do it who is not there on the inside, who's not doing the work. So thank you for that and that explanation. Let's come back to the other piece that you mentioned, though, because I know this is definitely going to spark interest for people. You said organizations need to learn how to fail and fail more often. Now, I get what you mean by that, but I'm wondering if other people hear that, if what they're thinking. And again, that's not, I love it. People are going to think that I planted that question for you or planted that thing because I'm talking about this so often. But I know people are tired of hearing me talk about it. So, what do you mean by that when you say,
I mean, you have to allow people to try. Like too many organizations, everything has to be perfect. And and don't get me wrong, there's a level of there is a level of accountability that has to be had, but you have to have the flexibility and the fluidity to be able to try and the adaptability to try some stuff to see whether something works, to change, to pivot, to do that. Like we just talked about the frontline staff, somebody, some SME that knows the work, they do it day in, day out. Maybe it's a nurse on the floor, maybe it's somebody in HR are running a different process, maybe it's somebody in finance. You have to give them the space to say, hey, this is my span of control. This is what I have control over. Maybe we should try 1, 2, 3 to see where we can get. Maybe it'll improve our bottom line. Maybe have done it for 15, 20 years. You have to allow them that space and that flexibility to do that because again, hey, that'll increase productivity because again, they already have ownership over their job and the pride in that, but they want to see it do better. Let's be realistic. People inherently want to do the best job they can. Most people
yes,
don't come to work. They don't come to work to do a mediocre job, get paid and go home. Like you come to work because you want to do the best job that you can because it gives you a sense of pride that you were able to accomplish things. So you being able to come in and have that flexibility, have a little bit of autonomy or judgment base to be able to implement just a change or a tweak means that hey, they're thinking of you in a manner to where you're a subject matter expert. And a lot of people, even though they are subject matter experts, they're not. The environment is not created for them to act like one. And so you need to create an environment that individuals can act like a subject matter expert, but like they can take some of those chances and take some of those risks. Don't get me wrong, I get there has to be a limit, but as long as it's not going to cost a catastrophic demise, like I hate to say it, like I've been in HR, I've seen payrolls, I've seen massive I've seen finance, I've seen massive errors that have cost millions of dollars. I'm not saying that, but an error over here that can be corrected 3 or 4 steps later,
yeah,
let them try it because when you create those environments, you spark innovation, you spark everything else. I mean, it's the same. I'm going to jump in because a lot of people are probably going there. Think about the whole thing with AI.
yes,
I've been on to me. I've been on governance boards. I've been on councils and everything else. I've developed different pieces of policy for that. AI is one in which it's like, look, if the tool can help within guidelines and it can help your service line, why not help your subject matter expert help you understand where it would best fit in? Because guess what? Somebody in IT may not understand because they don't know the full workflow. They don't know
right,
the core day-to-day processes. But you give the person on the front line that wiggle room, help them work with IT, let them see where AI would best fit in that pipeline. And guess what? The outcome will be 10 times better than to let IT who's in another building say, okay, this is where we're going to use AI, and it may not have any bearing or anything else, and you may elongate a process or something. So you got to let people try things out, develop solutions, and implement countermeasures. I mean, that's a part of just standard scientific method. I mean, it's the way that we've solved problems for millions of years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And one thing that in that has me thinking is, and you help people develop their own, not only their own skill set and expertise, but also their confidence.
Yep.
And you need that when you're talking about retaining and growing people, because so many organizations will tell me, well, Jamal, we're looking for leadership, but we just don't have it inside. And I say, that's probably because you haven't developed it inside. You've created a culture where people are not being developed into leadership. And what you just mentioned, Milton, is one of those ways that people can do that every single day, right? Is
Yep.
giving them that space to try something, letting them know that it's okay if it doesn't work right away, right? Figure it out. How did you counter? How are we going to get to the other side? What did we even learn from the failure, right? Like,
Yep.
help us with that so that we can put it out there so other people don't go that route as well. So love that. But whew, I'm looking at the time, and we got to get into this one because you just opened up a whole can, right? When you brought in
Yeah.
AI, sir.
Yeah.
So, Milton, if it's okay, let's dive into that. I read one of the things that you mentioned in the pre-interview was helping people really understand how to use AI and embrace AI. And you touched on that just a moment ago, but would love to give you more opportunity to talk more about that. And I'm going to put two questions out there. We're going to do one at a
Okay.
time. The second question I would really like us to get to also, that all this I think is, we'll tie all this in together, is the difference between leading from a title, like having the title of a leader, versus actually being a leader of people. So
Yeah.
those are two questions I would like to get to.
Yep.
But let's start with the first one, AI. What would you share with folks about AI and how to successfully begin to implement? You gave us some perspective right there, but I also heard you say something earlier about AI helping with tasks. And I thought that was so important.
AI in general is again a tool. It's a technology stack, and it's only an AI as we have it now is only as good as the questions you ask.
Hmm.
Again, I go back to lean and developing people and respect for people.
Yeah.
Lean, one of the again, when I talk about it's a mindset because you're teaching people how to ask the right questions. So if you're teaching them how to ask the right questions, you're also helping them develop those question asking skills, how to ask the appropriate questions when, which to me says that, hey, if someone has a task, why are you going to sit there to do a pivot table that at this point could take you 3 hours to do? Within governance and everything else, if you ask the right questions, AI could do it for you within 30 minutes. That's a
Wow.
major that is a major decrease. Why wouldn't you let them within constraints? Don't get me wrong. I'm not discounting IT governance and governance because again, I sit on those boards. I
Yes.
understand that. But if it's a closed system and it's your system and you're doing that why not let them utilize that? Because again, that's manpower, that's subject matter expertise that they can be utilizing again to do more innovative tasks, to be on more or different other boards or engagements within the organization, and to help you come up with other things. When I talk to people about AI utilization, what I focus them on is asking, how do you ask the right questions? Like, what are different than with lean? When I engage them, I say start with and tell me, what does success look like? So
Yeah.
no different than that. That's how I approach AI. What does success look like for you if you're going to use AI? What are you trying to get to, and then work your way backwards from that. That's the
Mm,
way that I tell people to approach
mm.
AI and look at AI. Look at AI. It's a tool. I'm still telling you to fact check. I'm still telling you to verify, but as a tool for tasks, on simple mundane things, email review, QA/QC for things like that. Implement it in your workflow. See what works best for you. You do small steps and learn day by day. I tell people play with it, let it learn you, let it develop your style and get better at it because it only gets better the more you use it. And you only get better with it the more you use it. Say no different than how you start to ask questions about your processes and your procedures The more and more you ask those questions, the better you get to it, the better defined you get.
Yeah.
So that's my take, at least on AI. The
I
second
love that.
question you asked me was, what was it?
I was, talking about leadership as
Oh
a
yeah.
title versus leadership as a function.
So to me, a lot of people chase the leader. We chase the leadership titles, and I will say we to an extent. I don't know. I don't necessarily chase the title, but we give titles to those high performers. That's historically how it's done. And if I'm great at my job and what I do, I get promoted into a manager, to a director, and then they give me tons of responsibilities. Nowhere in that spectrum are you ever trained on how to or how to actually lead. And
Yeah.
fundamentally, for me, leadership is really about you embracing that respect for people, and the lean tenet being a servant leader. So a servant leader is somebody that you put your people to an extent above you, above that paper chase, above
Yeah.
that race, and you come out when you need to shield them for some things, but then you break down barriers, you pull down roadblocks and everything else. And so to me, you can have a title, you can be a great charismatic leader, and that's great. But when it comes to other things, you may still function like a manager. If it's task oriented or and everything else, you're a driver. You do well driving things because you are a
Hmm.
high performer. I still expect you're going to perform high. You're going to be a high performer. What you don't understand though is the EQ behind that, or that the tenet of respect for people at its core. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're bad to your people, but you don't understand the interdependence between relationships that sometimes it takes to fine tune some of those interactions. And again, I keep talking about creating spaces for people to fail. Most of the drivers, you don't create spaces for people to fail. You
Yeah.
don't create that psychological safety because, again, you don't feel like you can fail. You don't personally don't feel like you can fail. So that you kind of push that to your team. So
Yeah.
then it mirrors how you have driven your line, how you have driven your success within that by chasing that title. You have to kind of break down those barriers. So what I see and what I help and I coach leaders on is, hey, sometimes you got to take a step back, and no different than anything else. I have to ask the question: what does success look like for you? What do
Yes.
you want your team's success to look like? Because again, we talk about not having leaders and not having people ready for leadership, but did you give them the chance? Did you create the environment? Are you training them? Are you developing them? Are you mentoring them? What does that look like? Because a title is great on paper, but a title doesn't say everything about when you're trying to drive those conversations. And it's pieces of, you need a little piece of mentorship, you need leadership as servant leaders, meaning you're creating opportunities, you're in some of those rooms where you're being that sponsor, you're cheerleading some of those people where you see they may not necessarily 100% be that driver yet, they're not the best, they may be middle of the road, but you see they have fine-tuned some of those people stuff
Right.
things. Those people connections, they can move through a room, they can identify some of the gaps, but they can talk to different people, they can push different people to get different things done, and they create an environment where because the team knows, because there's team wins, it's not just an individual win. And so to me, that's the core difference between your standard title leader, people that embody it, and then people that have maybe a functional leadership. I say to myself most of the time, I have because I'm an internal consultant, because of where I sit, yes, I am a leader, but I am a functional leader because I don't have any direct reports at the moment, but I have influence on a lot of different people, and I coach a lot of different people on how to navigate different circumstances or situations, especially within C-suite levels, how they can navigate, how they can lead from the front, how they can model behavior, and it's about how they do that for their people, and they go hard for their people, and a lot of them go hard for their people. So it's just that they haven't fully developed some of those skills, but they're working on it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Milton. You kind of You kind of teased me because you hit that word again of mentorship. So that's just confirmation that we've got to come back and talk more about that. But Milton, wow, thank you so much for everything that you have brought to this episode for us in this community today, all of the different wisdom that you've shared. I really appreciate just everything, but you breaking down kind of the idea behind Lean and Six Sigma and how I heard you mention this both with Lean and Six Sigma and AI of really helping leaders understand the tool aspect. The tool is all about whose hands is the tool in, and does a person fully understand that? How are they using that? So I think that that resonates with so much about leadership, and then also all the other pieces that you shared as well, even about, again, that human centered servant leadership model. I think is so important, and hearing it from your perspective is really important. So thank you so much for all that you have shared today. I will leave you with one question if you can answer it, and that is, what's one book that you might recommend for people to pick up?
Servant Leader. I would read Servant Leader. It's not that I want to say it's been a couple every couple of years I picked it up. It's been a couple of years now since I last read it. But I want to say that book is free. If you look up servant leadership, that is one I would say at its core read and then go back to reread.
Yeah,
I do go back to it just because sometimes I go, am I truly modeling it? I ask
yeah,
myself that question, and if I'm not, then I'm like, what will it take for me to get back to that space? Because
yeah,
it's one of those, like, it's constant. We're constantly evolving, we're growing, we're developing. We have different experiences, new experiences. So yeah, I would say definitely go back to that book, yeah, and look at where you are in that.
yeah. Thank you so much, Milton. Folks, thank you for listening in to another amazing, amazing episode today with Milton. Look forward to having you back on the show for maybe more than one episode. Just look forward to having you back in the future as a guest again, Milton. So thank you for everything.